We are ranking every character in Dead by Daylight from the worst to the best and giving you guys our personal opinions. Kings and Queens, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. It is time to jump on into the brand new tier list. We made one of these about 7 months ago and a lot has changed since then. So I thought we reevaluate and take a look at where my tier list stands. And I want to give a little shout out to Ewin for giving me a brand new gaming chair. I've recently been having some new renovations done in my apartment, and they were nice enough to actually send me a brand new chair that matches my background. It is completely gold, and I am in love with it. So if you guys want to get yourselves your own Ewin gaming chair, make sure you use the link in the description to get 20% off, and make sure you're using our code KING as well. A big thank you to Ewin. I'll be talking about them a little bit more in some other videos. But with that being said, it is time to jump on in to this tier list. The worst killer in the game, in my opinion, is the Clown. I just am not really a fan of the Clown or his power. They tried to make him a little bit better with his new bottles, but realistically, they didn't do much. There's a lot of different improvements that they could make to the Clown. Overall, his power is good in chases if someone is sticking around by the loop and you're constantly getting bloodlust or it's a very unsafe loop. Besides that, the survivor can easily avoid your smoke. And if you are using the yellow bottles to try to help you, again, the survivor just goes away and there isn't too much that you can really do as the Clown. Sure, you can make some nice things with maybe cigar, add-ons, etc. But overall, that's where we're putting the Clown as the worst killer currently in DBD. Next on the list is Myers, and I've kind of had it with Myers. I really tried giving Myers a fair shake, but as the meta changes, as more and more survivors adapt to killers, Myers just really falls behind. To get your power going just takes obnoxiously long. Tier 1 and Tier 2 almost have no purpose. You have to go into Tier 2 just to be a normal killer unless you're doing a gimmick build, and if you are, chances are you're not going to win anyways. So when it comes down to it, you have to be in Tier 3 and use those 60 seconds very well, but there's so much perks in the game and so much add-ons that give you exposed status effect as is, it just kind of negates his power completely. So I'm putting him in a very low bottom D tier. I wish that he had some reworked add-ons, and I think that could definitely improve him quite a lot, and maybe a few touch-ups with his power, but overall, Myers is the second worst killer in the game. Next on the list is the Pig, and you guys know I've always kind of ranked Pig pretty low. Reason being is that the Pig is just one of those killers as well that if you just avoid a loop or where she is, there's not much that she can do. By the time you crouch and try to use your ambush, if a survivor leaves that chase, that's pretty much it. If you're playing against a survivor that doesn't, chances are you could get the hit, especially if you mind game them, but against high-level MMR survivors, they're not falling for that. Then the Pig traps are just completely RNG. You can get them out first try. It's super easy to deal with them, and considering she only has 4 and other killers have powers that really exceed this, she's definitely fallen behind in 2023. It always hurts to do this one, but that is the Trapper. The Trapper's next on the list. Honestly, the biggest grievance that I still have with Trapper is that it's so easy for survivors to completely negate his power. I mean, if you walk up to a trap, disable it, that's pretty much it. And sure, there's Bloody Coil that you can run. That helps out a little bit, but if Bloody Coil was almost base at a percentage, let's say 10-15%, you get a chance to be injured, it would really improve the Trapper. Not to mention the fact that you don't just spawn in with all of your traps. That would be much more significant. Yes, again, there's add-ons to do that, but there's also a hindrance with that. Being the face of the game, I think that he definitely needs to be a lot better. Sadly, that's where he's going to put him, and he's my main. I feel bad, but that's where he's going to go. Hopefully, they can make some improvements in the future, but that is where we're putting the Trapper on the list. Moving on forward is the Onryo or Satiko. And again, another licensed killer that has kind of fallen behind. Now, I've done a lot of different builds with Satiko. I've done builds where, you know, you can get people to be condemned and kill them. I've done fantastic things with Satiko, but she still definitely falls really short when it comes down to everything. No pun intended, being one of the smaller killers. Teleporting on the map is really nice. You can use that to your advantage at any point. Combine that with Make Your Choices pretty good, things like that. But overall, that's about it. Her power doesn't help her in chase whatsoever. She's just a killer that you can loop, so all she really has is the teleporting ability. Condemned is completely negated because if you just ignore it, you don't need to even worry about it. And sure, you can get small bits of pieces of information and do some high-level IQ plays, but overall as a killer, she doesn't really do much. The reason why she's better than everybody else so far is that she does have that ability just to teleport around the map, giving you mobility that these other killers don't necessarily contribute or have. So Sadako is the final killer in the D tier. Moving on forward to the C tier, we're bumping it up a little bit. So these are the killers that aren't that bad, but still pretty bad. And the first person on the list is the Trickster. I've always kind of had a soft spot for the Trickster. I feel like when he came in, people really didn't like him for who he was rather than his gameplay. I started to like his gameplay, I got a little good with it, and then I realized that it just doesn't go up to par. Now, Trickster has one of the best one-on-one chases. You can easily get survivors down. By the time you do this though, or, toss in all displays without add-ons, or even with add-ons, a couple of gens are going to be popped. You have your regular mobility, and again, just like the pig, survivors can leave loops, go to safer places, etc., making your power completely negated. Of course, you have to reload this power, and then you have main event, which can help you in certain situations, but it doesn't really last that long to use it. Overall, Trickster is in the C spot as the worst killer to be there. Hopefully in the future we can see some improvements, but as of now, I definitely don't think that he's one of the better killers. Moving on forward is the Doctor, and the Doctor definitely has done quite well to surviving this long and being still decently powerful. The Doctor has some good chase potential if you're chasing someone and you need to really quickly stop them from dropping a pallet, going to a window. Sometimes this is finicky and you might have to do it earlier. He also has some good static blasts that you can basically get information, stop survivors from working gens, stop survivors from doing things in general like unhooking, etc. But boiling it all down, he is just your regular standard M1 killer. He doesn't have anything necessarily that helps him traverse the map really quickly, so you're kind of left with the same chases over and over. Now, his power does help him in chases, but similarly to Pig and Trickster, if you leave the loop, there's not much that the Doctor can do. By the time you use your shock to get somebody, essentially, they can make it to another loop, and then you got to completely do it again. There's been so many times where I shock, and it doesn't even do anything at certain pallets, because by the time they complete a loop, it doesn't even matter. So that happening just really doesn't feel the best, and that's why we're putting Doctor in the C tier. Shout out to Herman, though, because he is a really good Doctor main, but I just sadly, personally can't see Doctor being better than the C tier. Moving on forward is another person that has stood the test of time, and that is the Wraith. I really do like the Wraith. I've been noticing that the Wraith has been really doing good in my games. Every time I'm doing this classic hit and run strategy, Wraith has been really going, part to part with some really good survivors. And if you're running Bone Clapper, things like that to help you out, it works out quite well. Wraith can definitely make some really good plays. Having that speed boost after uncloaking is really awesome, stopping survivors that maybe have a sprint burst, running to a vault, running to a pallet, and catching them off guard. And you do have a little bit mobility if you run the right add-on. So he basically has everything in his kit if you run the add-ons that will help you in your gameplay. However, he does fall short because it's not quite as good as some of the other killers. Overall, I think Wraith is pretty solid and you can get some good plays with him. It's just that he's not quite to the par of the other killers and the other survivors that may have something that can give them a speed boost in chase, or help them in chase, or help them transport around the map, things like that. So that's why he is in the C tier. Moving on forward to one of the killers that definitely has fallen from grace, it's Freddy. Freddy has been one of the best killers in the game for such a long time, but sadly, he's no longer up there. At one point, he was the highest pick killer in the game, and since the nerfs that they created on him, it really has not helped whatsoever. And I think a lot of people have been avoiding him, and now if you play against Freddy, or you try to play as Freddy, you don't really have that much of a good time. Now, Freddy, on his base kit, has everything that a good killer typically needs. He has the ability to teleport across the map, although that is on a cooldown, and his power technically does help him in chase if you're using your dream pallets or your snares. However, again, just like some of the other killers, easily avoidable, and if you're placing these down, it doesn't really hinder you that much. Dream pallets are good only for the end game as well. I see no reason why these two powers cannot be combined and changed, kind of like the clown changing his bottles. That would make Freddy really jump up a couple of tiers, but as of now, Freddy is very easy to go against. All you need to do again is pay attention to your pallets. If he's running dream pallets, if he's running snares, avoid the snares, or even go to the snares and then forcefully take the hit. and then carry on going. While you're in the dream state as well, you can easily just go into these snares and make sure that they're not there for when, similar to Trapper, when you're going to run that loop, and then there's, again, not much that Freddy can do. Also, having that cooldown for teleporting definitely doesn't help when other killers do a really good job. Even Sadako does a better job at just teleporting to TVs at will. So that's why Freddy is in the C tier. Definitely can use some improvements, and hopefully we'll see those in the future. Moving on forward to my boy Waza, my boy Ghostface. I do love me some Ghostface, man. It is fun sneaking up on survivors, exposing them, hitting them down. It's really fun. It's really entertaining. Sadly, though, Ghostface is at the top of the C tier. Doesn't quite make it to the B tier, in my opinion, because he only has one part of his kit that really helps him, and that's kind of the chase, which isn't even chase. It's more of just catching a survivor off guard with your stealth, which can be good in chases because it cuts it down really short. So I guess, yes, it helps you in chases, but not in the way of just chasing the survivor, initiating the chase, essentially. Having the ability to stalk from a distance, expose the survivor, and then hit them is definitely better than the other stocky boy Myers, and considering that you can do this to multiple survivors at different times, it works out quite well. However, that is pretty much it. If you expose somebody, you have the 60 seconds, they can loop you, they can go to palace, they can drop everything in the world, and sometimes you might even have to give up that chase because it's just not quite worth it. You can get them if they're working on generators, unhooking, things like that, where the power excels and works well because they're kind of stuck in that area, but everything else, it doesn't really do well. Again, you can just loop, run him around, regular M1 killer, his power doesn't help him in the chase. Sure, you have the crouching ability that's more used for maybe you can counter it on a little bit of loops. Against good survivors, not really. You don't really have anything else to, walk around the map quickly, transport yourself around like Blight or something like that. So you're stuck being just your standard 115 killer. Although he has that expose status effect, making people easier, cutting that chase down in way quicker fashion, which is better than every killer that we've seen thus far on this list, with a little bit of exception, again, of the Onryo just teleporting and potentially condemning people. But to get to that point is so long, so that's why Ghostface is up here. And he's better than Myers, the other exposed killer, because he can just do this at will. You don't need to wait to get to tier 3 and then only have a 60-second window. You can do this whenever needed. The added bonus is that your power, if you do go in Shroud, can help you if you expose somebody and not really have a red stain. It can lead to a little bit more mind game potential, which does help you out in some chases in time, so that's why he is at the C tier. Moving on to the B tier, I don't actually have this killer available, so we're going to just substitute with a different killer. Let's just put the Trapper. And that killer is the Skull Merchant. That's right, the Skull Merchant is in the B tier. Overall, you guys know how I feel about this chapter. I think this chapter has been one of the worst chapters that we've kind of seen in Dead by Daylight in recent history, just because of, all the other chapters we receive and the kind of levels that we've expected from behavior. With those grievances aside, and strictly talking about the power and looking at the changes that they have created with her, she's definitely improved a little bit, and there's a lot of things in there that has helped her, especially in her base kit, that I think will go over quite well. Look, I played Skull Merchant for about 10 hours, and I do have a lot of grievances with her, but she's definitely better than everyone in the C and D tier. I don't think she's the worst killer, as some people might put it, but I don't think she's nowhere near decent or even good. I think she's just in that awkward position where this killer is weird. Some people might do really, really good with her because that's just how people are, and the rest of the community are just going to be like, yeah, no, this is not it. I've gotten some good games. I've played with multiple different types of builds, multiple different types of add-ons, and I've really seen the ins and outs of trying, the stealthy way, the aggressive palette way, etc. I've used her drones in all ways that you can think of, and overall, this is where I feel comfortable putting her. I think that her power itself doesn't necessarily work well if you're just dropping these drones in one stagnant spot and waiting for a survivor to come, although that is one of the better strategies if you really want to get a long haul game and forcefully get that 4K, which reminds me a lot of the Knights type of gameplay of just holding down a 3-gen. The power does work well if you actually try to run in chases and put the drones down, because a lot of survivors try to avoid this. The issues are that if someone is exposed or already injured, the drones pretty much do nothing. On top of that, if you do leave your drones around the map and you are getting information where other survivors are at, that doesn't help you whatsoever. On top of that, survivors can easily just go up to the drone and, dismantle it really quickly. So there's quite a lot of grievances with her. We have to see exactly what she's like when the full gameplay comes out. I think the changes that they've proposed definitely buffed her up from C to B, but I don't think she's going to be super duper strong. I might eat my words when she comes out, but we'll have to wait and see. But that is where I'm going to be putting the Skull Merchant. Moving on forward to the next killer on the list that I think is better than the Skull Merchant is the Demogorgon. Demogorgon, I feel like, is one of the most balanced killers in the game. It really depends on quite a lot of things, the team you're playing against, the map you're getting, things like that. Overall, I think Demogorgon is pretty cool though, and who doesn't like the Demo Boy? You have your portals around the map to help you, and you can just kind of teleport where you need to be, so you have that aspect locked down. And then you have your Shred, which really does help you a lot in chase or even zoning your survivors. This helps you in both aspects. The drawbacks of the Demogorgon is that these portals can't be placed at will. Yes, you can place your 4 or 5 portals, but then if a survivor does not dismantle it, sometimes you can go the whole game without having any use of your portal whatsoever. On top of that, if you are going through the portal, the survivors will know they can run away, so they'll hear the big and then they're like, oh, we gotta go. The Shred does work quite well in certain situations, and if you're running to a loop, running to a pallet, running to a vault, the Demogorgon can definitely cut that off. The Demogorgon, however, doesn't have anything else. That's pretty much it. So I feel like in certain situations, especially if you're going to a map like the game, things like that, you don't really have good portal placements that you can really go to. And then there's tons of pallets that your power, you just shred through them. By the time you're recovered, you're back to a next pallet, and that process tends to repeat. So overall, I think he's a balanced killer, and it really depends on, the playstyle of the survivors, things like that, and if you're able to capitalize on some of the mistakes that they're doing. I think he's really well put. He has everything that a good killer needs in his kit, and therefore we're putting him in the B tier. Moving on forward, we have the Deathslinger. And over time, I've kind of respected Deathslinger a little bit more. I've always had my grievances when they changed him and made it so that the ADS time was a lot slower. I've come to adapt to that a little bit more in playing more and more and figuring out that I can easily zone survivors, things like that. He has a massive, really good one-on-one chase potential, similar to Trickster, where you can just hit a survivor, stop them from going to a loop or a vault, or even if they vault, stop them right there, getting that hit, reloading, and carrying on. However, again, similar to a lot of other killers, he falls short in the sense of you don't really have that map pressure, especially since you are a slower killer. Now, you do have some added range, but it's obviously much more difficult to hit those shots at an added range. Even if you are the best Deathslinger, the best shooter there is, it's still going to be quite difficult. Let's say you do hit all your shots, though, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can stop these survivors from working on the generators. While you might have this crazy good one-on-one chase potential and stopping survivors in their tracks, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can stop everybody, especially if they're scattered around the map. So with that being said, we have put the Deathslinger in the B tier. I think, again, he's a pretty good killer. Depends on a lot of different things, though, similar to most of the killers in the B tier. Moving on forward, and admittingly, a killer that I don't have too much experience or knowledge with, I've come to realize that I don't really know much about Pinhead. Like, I play him occasionally, and I do some builds here and there, but overall, I don't know too much about him. I don't really see a lot of people playing him either. That could be because of all the NFT stuff, but overall, it's just been kind of, occasionally I see him, occasionally I play as him, and that's about it. Let's talk about his power. The chains are really good if you are trying to stop a survivor from continuously looping. You can get a nice little hit on them if they're just kind of running in a straight line and you decide to pull out your chain. You won't probably make it to them, so it's kind of a waste of time doing that. So this works best if someone's looping you and you could potentially get a hit, which sometimes doesn't even work out in your favor. We also have the box itself, which most survivors are going to be running to stop the chain hunt from activating. If they do this, you can teleport to them and then begin chasing, which is quite nice because you're instantly granted a chase with a survivor. However, if they're in a good position, you can be chasing them for quite a long time. In the off chance that your chain hunt does active, it does help quite well, especially if you're running the right add-ons. Sometimes even if you guard the box and play scummy like that, you can get some good gameplay out of him. Overall though, I think he is in the B tier. His chains do help him, but it's very similar to someone like the Deathslinger or the Trickster, where it helps you if they're at a pallet. You might get that nice little hit on them, but then you have to regather yourself, catch up to them again, hope they're not running in like a straight line, and then use your chains, or if they vault, then you gotta go all the way around, and then you can get some good potential out of it. The box itself helps you a little bit when it comes down to teleporting around, but that's where I'm gonna put the Cenobite. Moving on forward to yet another licensed killer, and that is the Nemesis, the second tallest killer in the game. He's clearly breaking our screen right here because he is just way too goddamn tall. But Nemesis, we'll move him down a little bit, there you go, is the next killer on the list. Now, Nemesis is a quite interesting killer, and I definitely think he has a lot of potential to be even better in the future if they ever decide to touch him up. But Nemesis has everything that you pretty much need, it's just a little bit different. Nemesis has some great potential when using his tentacle, hitting you over pallets, hitting you over vaults, so that's not really an issue. His power definitely helps him out in the chase, and it only gets stronger and stronger. Now, admittingly, Tier 1 and Tier 2 don't really do too much. Tier 3 is where you really want to get it going, because that's when the tentacle can, potentially even break the pallet and hit the survivor, things like that. Passing the infection is good too. There's not really any reason that you really need to cure yourself. You can, but it will just give you one extra hit, and survivors can even use this to their advantage by taking a hit from a zombie if they're not infected, for example, to get a little bit of a speed boost, or even a hit from your tentacle. So you can cure yourself. It does help, but realistically, you're going to be hit by the tentacle regardless throughout. It could give you a free health state here and there, but overall, let's say you don't do it, you don't really have too much to worry about. Next, the zombies. They patrol, they walk, and sometimes they can definitely be a nuisance to the survivors. If they're right next to a generator or right next to someone that's on the hook, they can definitely help you. And believe it or not, I actually did get some good plays of me hitting a survivor with my tentacle and then a zombie quickly downing them. So in the right position and the right timing, Nemesis can really pull the trigger on some of these survivors. His power, again, helps him in chases. The zombies, if they're at their best, can help. However, if the zombies are at their worst, they really do nothing, which leaves you just using your tentacle. Now, sometimes you might miss his tentacle. That's more of your own fault and skill issue, not to be mean, and it happens to me a lot, so I'm just really bad with Nemesis, admittingly. But if you do manage to get these hits, you can tear up, and this can help you. Overall, it's pretty good. It helps you mainly on your chases, and it makes your chases a lot easier because you don't need to worry too much about pallets or vaults, for example, because if someone's looping, they're about to drop the pallet, step back, use your tentacle, bam. Be tactical with it, don't do it if they expect it. You can just walk through and then take the M1, etc., similar to Huntress, winding up her hatchet. And overall, I think Nemesis is in a pretty comfortable position. And the zombies, if they work well, they can help you. So that's where we're putting the Nemesis. Moving on forward to a killer that has definitely grown on me over the past couple of months, and that is the Legion. I've actually had a really good swell time with the Legion. I've had some fun playing Legion, especially with Never Stops Action, that's his name with a skin, jeez. The Pills and Feral, what is it? Mural Sketch, Jesus Christ. Mural Sketch and Never Sleep Builds. Those two add-ons combined are superior to any other add-ons that you will have for the Legion. I don't care what you say, try them out, especially if you can get them to work precisely. You will not be stopped. I have been claiming this for a long time because I don't know if anybody has done this, and if they have, you can correct me in the comments, but I've gotten 25 downs using the Feral Frenzy alone and not even M1ing in a game, and I believe that might be a world record. I don't know. I have a video on the second channel. I was supposed to post it on the main channel. It was a challenge in my Twitch chat. I managed to do it. The game lasted for about an hour, and that was using these two add-ons. And I was only downing them because for every down I get, I gotta give the sub. The game would have been done very, very early. Overall, those two add-ons is what I'm trying to say makes Legion really, really good. And if you're running just those two yellow add-ons, you will be dominant in all of your games. Now let's take away from that fact. Let's just talk about regular Legion gameplay now. Chances of finding multiple survivors together are definitely better at generators. You can use things like discordance to help you out, etc. with the new buffs that they kind of gave to him, where if you manage to get that Feral Frenzy down, it works quite well. You can actually do this, not to mention you get more speed, which helps, and more time to do this, so it's quite nice. On top of that, it gives you information on where every survivor is, and you're constantly putting the survivors to mend. It's definitely one of the more boring killers to go against, but as a killer, it's quite fun stabbing everybody. On top of that, you can easily just negate pallets, negate falls, jump over them, then maybe, get out of your power and then take an M1, or if you want to Feral Frenzy them, you can do that and then get out of your power again and go after them. So Legion kind of has everything again in that kit, and a little bit more with Killer Instinct once you Feral Frenzy stab someone, because now you know where everybody else is at. Now, there are, grievances with the Legion as well. If there's nobody else around, sometimes the power is just meh. If you are just Feral Frenzy stabbing people, sometimes you're not going to be able to down as much people as you like. And if everybody stays injured, then your power kind of pointless. You have to go for the M1s, which makes you an M1 killer. However, you still can use it if you're going against vaults, going against pallets, etc. Overall, I think Legion is definitely in the B tier. I think with those two add-ons especially, it bumps him up above a lot of these killers. And again, if you haven't given it a try, I highly encourage you to do so. And that is the last killer, essentially, in the B tier, which now takes us to, drumroll please, B+. Woohoo! And the first killer on the list, of course, for B+, has to go to the chili-loving cannibal, Bubba. Bubba is the first killer on the B+ tier, and I really do like Bubba. I find myself playing a lot of games of the of the cannibal, and he's quite good. Listen, the ability just to, make survivors greed, or if they don't greed, drop a pallet in fair from your chainsaw, is so superb to so many of these killers. He just has such good chase potential, and if you do end up getting into that chase, chances are it'll be a quick one, because you're either killing them with the pallets, taking every pallet out really early, or you manage to get that quick down. Not to mention the potential of just, someone going for the unhook, or two survivors near each other downing multiple people. It just makes your job so much easier. And if you're running the right add-ons as well, sometimes it can be really unstoppable. A lot of people love running the engravings. I believe it's different on Bubba. It's not engravings, is it? It's the other one. Light chases? I don't know. But the one that makes you faster, essentially. And especially if you're running things like chili, things like that, it really does help. Just having the ability to down someone instantly in a chase as soon as you see them is huge, and it has huge potential if someone's going for the unhook, if someone's opening a chest, if someone's busting a totem. If you catch them off guard, they're pretty much finished. Having that ability just to one-shot a survivor is superb. Now, Bubba does fall short in the sense that he doesn't have map pressure. You can't just run across the map like the Blight. You can't just zip across and be like, zoom, I'm here, So you're kind of left with just being your regular Bubba self. You can get the M1s if you want. The chase potential of just knocking people down is huge, and that's why we kind of have him in B+. That's the only grievance that I really have with Bubba. Some of the add-ons are a little bit lackluster, admittingly, and sometimes you might get dominated if survivors are smart, they don't greed, and maybe you mess up and hit something, hit these little tiny debris that's around the map that they definitely need to fix the collision on. But overall, that's where we're putting Bubba. I think he's in a nice spot, and I really do like him. I have fun with Bubba. I really do. Next on the list is one of the newer killers in the game, and that is the Knight. I have waited so long for a Knight. My name is King, you know me. I've been waiting for a Knight. And when the Knight came out, I was definitely disappointed. I said that this was probably one of the worst chapters that the game has ever received, only to my knowledge, we were getting the Skull Merchant. So I take it back, it is the second worst killer in the game. However, upon release, let me put a stipulation. However, the Knight has grown on me. I put tons of hours into the Knight. I figured out different playstyles. I figured out how you can, kind of capitalize on it. And obviously, the obvious thing to do is the 3-gen, keeping people around, things like that, which I figured out quite early in playing him. I thought that was very apparent and obvious. But the more I play Knight, the more I realize that there's a lot of different things that you can do with him, and using your 3 minions, essentially, to help you out goes quite a long way. And if you use them the way they're intended to, you can really capitalize on a lot of different things. So playing the knight the way it's meant to be played and using it for the right reasons and using all the guards for their purposes definitely helps you quite a lot. Again, it's a similar treatment to the twins where you can have multiple killers across the map. You can force people off at generators. You can damage generators, much quicker. You can use some of the knights or the guards to break pallets, break vaults to help you in chase. So there's so much upside. The downside to this is that sometimes these knights or guards don't really do much. Survivors can get the flag and become faster, things like that. So you can't always be at, every place at every time, but the knight is just quite an interesting killer, to put it. Because while he does have that potential to be at multiple places at once, sometimes it doesn't necessarily go your way, sometimes it does. And even if they do injure a survivor, they can hop back in a gen, things like that, while you're across the map. But it's still better than every other killer that, if someone's across the map, what are they going to do, So the knight overall, I think is really interesting. You have some good chase potential. You can force survivors out of loops. You can, capitalize on breaking vaults, windows, pallets. Not windows, you can't do that, but you know what I mean. So I have him in the B+ tier. If you really boil it down, then you do those 3 gens and you capitalize on it, you can hold the survivors forever. You may have seen Hens doing this in one of his gameplay videos where he just kept survivors on Dead Dog for hours. So the knight has some good potential if you play him correctly, and that's why he is in the B+. I wish I had a better explanation on why I decided to put knight in B+, but the honest reason is that I'm still learning and still exploring knight a lot more, so I don't really have anything set in stone to be like, this is why, blah, 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 blah. Even if I sat down to try to write something down for you, I couldn't put it on paper. Besides the obvious, yes, this can help you here, this can help you there. All in all, if you play the knight correctly and the way it's intended, I think it has really good potential, but a few downsides here and there, which the upscale definitely outweighs them, and that's why I have him in the B+. And yeah, that's the boy knights. Moving on forward, we have the Hillbilly. Hillbilly has, again, stood the test of time. It seems that these OG killers have really stood that nice test of time. I still think that Hillbilly is one of the better killers in the game, and I feel like the reason that people don't give Hillbilly enough credit is because they are just sad that they don't have the insta-saw ability that we're used to, or the overheat mechanic wasn't there. And yes, this does affect you in certain types of gameplay where you're like, alright, if I want to just continuously rev my chainsaw around a pallet until I have that nice optimal hit where I can flick, you can't necessarily do that anymore. I feel like that, however, is for some of the best Hillbilly players out there. The people that really have mastered Hillbilly, those are the ones that it really affects. But for your average Joe like me, I don't really have that problem with Hillbilly. Now, admittingly, the add-ons all suck. None of the add-ons are good, and I wish that they fixed them because, God help them, they are terrible. With the exception of a few, I personally like Doom Engravings, Mother's Helpers, things like that, and they can help you here and there. But Hillbilly itself, again, has everything that a good killer needs in his kit, and if you play him right, you'll do good. You have the ability just to zip across the map at any given time that you want, just don't bump into an object, and then in chase, you can M1, you can use your chainsaw to bait people out not to throw a pallet, and then M1 them down, things like that. You can knock them down with your chainsaw if you're right. If you're running things like Mother's Helpers, Doom Engravings, things like that, or Lopro chains, you can just run through a pallet. There's a lot of good add-ons still for the Hillbilly, although the rest are quite bad. So if you use those 3 add-ons, you might do good. But Hillbilly, again, he has everything that you need. Zip across the map, good chase potential, and can down survivors. The only downside is the bad add-ons on the overheat mechanic, but overall, that's where Hillbilly's gonna go. Now, you can loop him, some collisions will affect him, things like that, but, what killer does that not affect? What, besides Nurse. But I think Hillbilly's in a good spot. I think he's alright. I wish he had some add-on loves and possibly some new skins, but that's nothing to do with the power. And that's where we're putting Hillbilly. B+. I think he's pretty solid. I think he's in a good spot, and I'm looking forward to what they're going to do with Billy in the future. Speaking of fixing someone in the future, the next killer on the list is the Twins. Shout out to Linksy. The Twins. Oh boy, where do we start? Listen, the Twins definitely need a lot of improvements, a lot of changes, but without reasonable doubts, the Twins are a good killer, man. Like, if you play the Twins correctly, you can do quite well. Obviously there's a lot of downsides to them and a lot of things that need to be adjusted and needs to be fixed, but overall the Twins are pretty oppressive to go against if you're playing against especially a good Twins player. Having the ability just to call out Victor when needed to quickly get rid of someone on the loop, or if they're, by Killer Shack, things like that, is superb. No other killer kind of has that, where you can just, you're like, all right, I don't want to do this loop, bam, call my power out, done and done, just don't miss. Obviously easier said than done, but if you take your time and you're patient with Victor, you can get that nice little hit on them. At that point, you can either wait to continue to chase him, get him down, etc., or you can go do a completely different thing that you would like to do, chasing somebody else and letting Victor do what he has to do. On top of that, if you place Victor by a hook, for example, you hook someone, you have the killer instinct to know when someone's there, you can latch onto them, carry on forward. With some of the add-ons that there are as well, you can make Victor a little bit better, kind of like Toy Sword, but I mean, it's a brown add-on. The add-ons definitely aren't there, and that's the start of the grievances with the Twins. The Twins also, if someone just holds Victor, there's not much you can do. If Victor is on a locker and you just wait and Charlotte's across the map, there's nothing you can do. Sometimes, Victor pouncing across the map and hitting a survivor is super buggy. Sometimes people can kick Victor when you're not even supposed to kick Victor. That timer is definitely way too long. So there's a lot of things that goes wrong with them. But just in your regular chases, your regular games, Twins are pretty oppressive. And I have them in a B+ tier over Hillbilly. They don't necessarily have the map pressure, essentially, as Hillbilly, but the fact that you can be kind of at two places at once is quite good. You can call Victor out, go all the way to the Killer Shack, for example, while you're all the way back in the cow shed. And if that's the case, you can kind of keep that positioning going and knowing a lot of information where survivors are at, guarding two places at once, things like that, and that can be massive in your games. Overall, I think the Twins are a decent killer. They're pretty good. They definitely can use improvements, tons of improvements. I'm waiting for the changes they're going to make, and I'm looking forward to it. But Twins in the right hands are definitely deadly, and that's where I'm putting them. Carrying on forward is the Dredge. A lot of people have mixed opinions about the Dredge. I feel like the Dredge really gets a bad rep, but overall, the Dredge is a good killer, man. Like, the Dredge can do what Sadako does, just even crazier. He can teleport, or it can teleport pretty much anywhere it wants. Obviously, if survivors lock it, it is a little bit more annoying, but you can just zip across the map. Combine that with Make a Choice, and you already have yourself a good game, So zip across the map, boom, 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 keeping all the pressure going. On top of that, if you are in chase, you can put your trail behind, and leave your husk, essentially. I forgot the actual name of it. And the survivor is forced to either leave that loop, which most of the times they do, a smart survivor will, and then you can get them in an awkward position trying to run to another loop fairly quickly, or even teleport in front of them to try to stop them. If you play your cards right with the Dredge, you're going to be really good. I'm surprised a lot more people don't play Dredge. Now, some people might think maybe the gameplay is boring and that's why they're not playing him, but on a strength level, I think Dredge is up there, man. B+ for sure, maybe even A if you're running boat key all the time, things like that. Especially when, the power starts and everything goes to black and, you are just superb at teleporting around, you can easily capitalize on this. So I think the Dredge has so much upside to him. He has the power to, negate chases, negate people from being at loops and then just teleporting out in front of them or continuing to chase them, getting them off of that strong loop, or teleporting around when need be to constantly keep that pressure going. Everything that a killer needs and a little bit more with the add-ons. I think Dredge is in B+. Obviously, locking the lockers definitely doesn't help. When someone is, in a certain area, sometimes you might teleport to a wrong locker. If someone's on a hook, you can't teleport around there, so that can be a little bit abused. Not really, but if you want to make your choice, it definitely makes it a lot easier. I think Dredge is a good killer. There's not too many downsides with the Dredge, and I think in the right hands, the Dredge is a formidable killer. Carrying on forward, we have the absolutely stacked A tier. There's quite a lot of killers in the A tier, so I'm going to try to speed through them. First one on the list is the Plague. Simply put, you barf on people, they get infected. You have two choices when you're infected. You either decide not to heal whatsoever, and then you're just a regular 115 killer that can potentially use your Vile Purge to easily knock these survivors down, especially if you're running Apple and with the one that you get and start. or choose not to do that, and then you chase them as a regular 115 killer, but everyone is permanently injured throughout the rest of your game. You do have absolutely fantastic way of just getting information by, barfing maybe on a pallet, barfing on a generator, and then if someone gets infected, you know that. So then you're like, all right, they're in this area. Use that to your advantage. Boom, you know where this person is at. If you can time it perfectly to where you are barfing on someone, maybe they're trapped in a corner, maybe you're chasing them and you get them injured and then easily smack them down, that is absolutely huge. And then again, the Vile Purge always coming up is quite nice. If everybody decides to heal as well, which is the other side of things, it makes your job so much easier because now you have a really easy to use aerial attack, ranged attack, that is even better than someone like the Huntress because you don't need to be super accurate with it. It'll stop people from going to vaults. If they decide to drop pallets, you'll get them. So it works out all ways round. If you want to see how good the Plague really is, just go take a look at Ott's playing. Absolute mad lad. It is fantastic to watch it, and there's even better Plague players out there as well. You can really see the potential that Plague has had. I used to in the past put Plague really down on the tier list, but after seeing the good amount of potential that you can do with Plague, I've definitely buffed her up on my tier list. Moving on forward is the Executioner. Again, everything in my opinion that a good killer needs. He has the ability where your chase potential is completely locked down. I mean, like, if you're good with Pyramid Head, it is so difficult to avoid the Rites of Judgment and avoiding that hit. Essentially, you have split seconds to react, but if you're playing against a really good Pyramid Head, they're gonna know exactly where you're at and they're gonna hit you. Your best case is to run away from the loop, or then the Pyramid Head will just easily down you. They can zone you into certain positions when you're trying to avoid the hit. Not to mention the Trail of Torment. If you decide to walk into it, they get information. You also become infected with the Trail of Torment. I forgot, tormented, I guess. And then if you are, to save you time because you don't necessarily run across the map like the Blight, you send them to the cage. You don't even need to worry about it. Send them to the cage, quickly get them out there. Very professional, very quick, on point with it. And it helps you out so much because the time you're wasting putting someone on a hook, the time you're wasting, avoiding flashlights, maybe running around pallets, things like that, is completely negated if you send someone to the cage. Don't need to worry about any of that stuff. And the power just in the M1 chases, or not M1 chases, in your regular chases are superior to most killers. That's why I think that Pyramid Head is definitely up there, right next to the Plague. You can get some really good gameplay out of him. With the right add-ons, it helps so much. With the right perks as well, you can get even more information to make your job a lot easier. But I've definitely seen the potential of what Pyramid Head can do in the game. Next on the list is one of the killers that I feel is really underrated, and I don't know why. That's the Hag. I feel like Hag has been slept on for such a long time, and I always kind of say this, but it's true. Nobody really plays Hag anymore, and Hag is so good. And I get if you think the gameplay might be boring, but Hag has the type of gameplay that it's kind of difficult to stop. I mean, if you're on the hook, it's pretty much GG's. You have to crouch, essentially, and a good Hag would place about 3 traps around. You have to crouch in order to walk there. That's waste so much time, and if the Hag is sensing that someone's going for the unhook, it's been too long, they'll run back, and if they see you, boom. You're going to trigger a trap in a panic or a rush. They'll easily get you down. If you're running Make Your Choice on the Hag, and that happens, boom. Teleport, rinse and repeat the process. If you have someone in the basement, it's even stronger. If we're just talking about regular chases, putting these traps down and then mind gaming survivors, if you're going to teleport or not, is super good. Any pallets similar to Trapper, place a pallet, boom. Someone go in there, trap gets triggered. They have to make a split-second decision if you're going to teleport or not, run back into you or run forward. Good Hag players will know exactly what to do, and then you capitalize. Hag is definitely one of the most underrated killers in the game, in my opinion. If you find the gameplay boring, that's on your own accord. That's to each their own, I suppose. I think Hag's pretty fun. Dropping those traps on someone that's on the hook, easily capitalizing on that, getting quick downs. Hag is definitely one of the better killers in the game. And it comes with map pressure as well, because you can just teleport at any point, especially with the right add-ons. If someone triggers your trap, boom, you're halfway across the map now. And then you have great chase potential because you can either fake placing a trap down, or if there's already a trap, someone runs into it, capitalize. So that's why we have Hag in the A tier. Moving on, next is one of the newer killers, Wesker. You might have seen Wesker quite a lot, and for good reason. Again, Wesker has everything that a good killer needs in their kit. They have fantastic potential in chase, using their power to just grab you and stop you from going to a loop, and then throwing you into a corner where it might be not the best for you. You might be in a place where, you know, you can't really make it to a pallet or a vault, and then he easily gets you down. You can also use your power to make up some distance. If you want to run across the map a little bit faster, use your power, zip zip, you're across next to somebody. The ability to grab somebody from super long range as well helps out so much, and in chases this helps out immensely. It also wastes the survivor's time, because if they are infected, they either are, you know, ready to die the next time you grab them, so they have to do that, and they're also slower. So all in all, it helps you in your chases so much, and then your power itself has the ability to make you fly across the map, which gives you so much time in order to catch up to survivors if needed, things like that. So if you just hit them, use your power, you're right on them again, and the chase can continue. So there's no time wasted. Not to mention the awesome voice lines that he has while playing him. Wesker's in the A tier. That's probably why you see a lot of Weskers in your game as well. As you're running something like the egg, things like that, it makes it so much easier to use him as well, and that's why we have him in the A tier. Carrying on forward is another killer that has stood the test of time, the Huntress. Yeah, she's still up there. Forgot about her? I hope you didn't, because she is great. Look at that outfit. Don't you love it? Huntress, again, has been one of those killers that it's hard to deal with a difficult Huntress. If they know what they're doing, they just have pretty much infinite range to hit you. You could just be chilling on a generator, la-di-da-di-da, boom, hatchet, you're dead. You know, there's so much versatility in her add-ons as well that you can do. You can be a silent Huntress. You can be a machine gun Huntress. Not like the old school ones, but you still can be pretty good. You can have hatchets that fly at the speed of light. So much good versatility when it comes down to the add-ons. You have Eerie Head that can literally just one-shot you, things like that. Admittedly, some of these things do need changes, but overall, they're alright. Huntress is 110. That's the only downside to her. She doesn't have that map pressure, but she makes up so much with it, with just an infinite range tomahawk that's going to be flying your way. If you're going to a vault, if you're going to a pallet, she can easily just stop you from doing that. If you decide to drop it, she can capitalize. If you don't decide to drop the pallet while you're in chase, she might fake out a hatchet and then swing for you, you know? There's not too much that you can do. If you're running for an unhook, she sees you, boom, hatchet, interrupts you, hatchet again, you're dead. I think it's pretty black and white why Huntress is up here. She is difficult to stop. While she doesn't have, again, the only downside to her not having that crazy good map pressure, she can easily capitalize by just throwing hatchets around. If you're running Darkness or Field, things like that, Iron Maiden, you don't even need to worry about reloading your hatchets, and you can continue doing some impressively good chases. Next on the list is the Artist. Again, I think Artist is one of those killers that people kind of forgot about. Didn't realize she's that good until you actually see her effectively being played. Artist is fantastic. You get 3 crows, throw them out, toss them to generators. If they hit somebody, you know that somebody's in that general location. It can stop someone from working at a gen at any given point, so that completely disregards the fact that she doesn't necessarily have mobility. But now you have crows that have the mobility for you that can actively stop survivors from doing whatever they're doing. On top of that, if you do your crows right and you send one, for example, in the right direction, move a good distance behind, you can injure somebody with just one flight of your crows. Not to mention, these crows help you as well when you're in a chase. Drop them by a pallet, drop them by a vault. If a survivor runs into them, send another one down him. If they're running in the area, send that crow after them. Boom, they are injured or downed. If somebody already is in chase with you, you can send the crow on them easily. The next time they run to a pallet or a vault, easily get them with that. The power helps you in chases. The power helps you when it comes down to just stopping people from going to strong loops. The power helps you getting information. The power helps you in stopping people across the map. Especially if you're running severed hands, things like that, it just becomes more superior. Artist is fantastic. She's a really strong and good killer. In the right hands, it's pretty unstoppable. And yeah, not much argument needed in my mind. Finally, to top off the A tier is one of my favorite killers in the game that I definitely need to play a little bit more. And that, my friends, is the Gran Oni. Yeah, I love the Oni. The only downside to the Oni, we'll start with the downside, is not getting your power as quick as possible. And this can easily be done by getting 2 hits or getting 1 hit and following your prey, collecting the orbs, and then capitalizing. If you don't find that initial survivor, that's a little bit on you. Sometimes you might have bad maps, sometimes they're too stealthy, whatever the case is, chances are you're going to find them. As soon as you hit a survivor, you can continuously chase them, collect their blood orbs, or hit another survivor, get your power going. Once your power is there, they're pretty much hillbilly on crack. You can run around, down multiple people. You know, it does take away a little bit from your power, which sucks, and I think that needs to change if they're going to add in the anti-slugging system. But you can run around the map all willy-nilly. You don't need to worry about bumping into objects, which is great because at loops now, you can kind of flick and turn around. And then when you're ready to attack, you can also flick, get survivors going to vaults, pallets, loops, whatever the case is. Break the pallets if they're in the way. If they're going to vault, stop them in their tracks. And you can down multiple survivors with this at one go or in multiple goes if you continuously use your power. It forces the survivors to heal, so they're wasting your time doing that as well, giving you more information as well if blood orbs are in a certain direction. Oni has everything that a good killer needs. The only reason why he's not in the S tier is because the killers in the S tier are just way more superior in all aspects. Not much, again, argument in my mind for that. And let's carry on to the S tier, the highest tier that we have for the killers. And, of course, starting off with S, we have the Spirit. Woohoo! Spirit is definitely one of the best killers in the game. With the right add-ons, there's not much a survivor can do. You can't see where she's at, so, you know, you don't really know how to stop her. And there's some things that you can do here and there to make it a little bit better, but overall, if you're going against a good Spirit, you're going to have a hell of a difficult time stopping her. I think Spirit is one of the better killers in the game, and she's been superior, man. She's been superior. She stood the test of time. With the nerfs, it definitely didn't help her, and that's why she's definitely knocked down a couple of pegs, but yeah. Also, I just realized that I may have made this tier list backwards, and things should be flipped around. And if that's the case, I apologize, and I'll fix it in post. But anyways, I'll continue. Yeah, I think Spirit is definitely one of those killers that is just really hard to go against. You know, if you're using your power, the survivors don't know where you're at. You can cut them off at the other side of the pallet. If they vault, you can stop them. Sometimes standing still even works, and survivors don't know what to do, and they run into you. Besides that, she is 110, so sometimes if her power's not recharged, you can get a little bit of a breather, but once the power's ready to go, she'll stop you in your tracks if you're looping. If you're halfway across the map, she can go into her phasing, go across the map really quickly, and be right there. It's difficult to go against a killer that you can't see. The Wraith obviously has to uncloak, but with her, she can just do it almost instantly, so it's much more difficult. Next on the list is the Blight. Yeah, the Blight is, again, one of those killers that is pretty unstoppable. The Blight has everything in the kit that you need. You have superior mobility, probably the best mobility in the game, which is fantastic. And then you can use that mobility to then attack survivors. You can flick and hit them. If you're by a loop and you're a really good Blight, you can just completely negate that with your speed. If you're running the right add-ons, you can go even faster doing this. If you are running the ring, you can capitalize on more. I don't think there's much argument or much justification needed for why the Blight is one of the best killers in the game, but he is, and I'm sure you know why, which leaves all but one killer on the list, and that is the Nurse. The Nurse is the best killer in the game. The Nurse ignores everything that the game has to stop killers, being pallets and vaults. She can literally just teleport and stop you. The only thing that will be an annoyance to her is Dead Hard, and then she'll just run through that. There's no justification needed for that whatsoever. The Nurse is the best killer in the game if you know how to play her, and that, my friends, is every killer ranked from worst to best. I do apologize as well if towards the end it may have felt a little bit more rushed, or if I didn't really make or articulate too many good points. As you go up on the tier list and as you record for this long, sometimes your brain kind of melts. And I think a lot of these killers don't need too much justification. There's not too much arguments that are going to be made. So that's why I kind of skimmed over them. But yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, leave a like down below. Subscribe for some more awesome Dead by Daylight content. Thank you for all of the recent support. Tons of new videos and awesome videos coming up for you guys in the future. As always, I'm the King. I tip my crown to you guys, and we'll see you in the fog.